Hi booktube, Aaron here, hope you're doing very well. Today I've got a bit of a book haul for you. In the last one I was talking about how I was going to show a certain amount of restraint. Restraint is not the word I would use for today's video. So I got a pile of books that I got, most of them second hand, and it feels like, you know, when you do a shop and it's not necessarily just stuff that you're going to be eating in the next week or so. You're buying cans of all kinds of stuff to go in the back of a cupboard. It feels like that. It feels like I'm stocking up. So let's see what's in the back of the pantry. Yeah, let's jump right in. First up, we've got a little what is it? It's like the Penguin Black Classics, but it's a modern classic version, and it's The Machine Stops by EM Forster. It's also got another short story in there. What's it called? It's called The Celestial Omnibus. So here's what it says on the back. EM Forster is best known for his exquisite novels, but these two affecting short stories brilliantly combine the fantastical with the allegorical. In The Machine Stops, humanity has isolated itself beneath the ground, enmeshed in automated comforts, and in The Celestial Omnibus, a young boy takes a trip. A young boy takes his a young boy takes a trip his parents believe impossible. So yeah, I've read The Machine Stops a couple of times and enjoy it. I have enjoyed it a lot. I haven't read The Celestial Omnibus, so that'll be good. So some EM Forster to read. He'll be showing up again. Then next up, we've got, and I'm doing these in size order, so that was the smallest book. Next up, we've got Zorba the Greek by Nikos Kazantzakis. Apologies to any Greeks there. There is no sort of synopsis on the back. However, it says that Zorba the Greek, Nikitos Kazantzakis' most popular and enduring novel, has its origins in the author's own experiences of mining and harvesting in the Peloponnesus in the 1920s. His swashbuckling hero has legions of literary fans across the world, and his adventures are as exhilarating and havoc-making now as they were on first publication in the 1950s. And then there's a blurb here that says that Kazantzakis is perhaps the most representative Cretan mind of today, expressing strange yearnings for mystical revelation and a strange belief in the heroic future of man. That really great book, Zorba, is a marvellous evocation of a landscape and a sketch of a temperament as validly Greek as Odysseus himself. It is a captivating book, and that's by my boy Lawrence Dorrell. Yeah, I've heard this come up in a few places, and it's been recommended by commenters as well. And so when I saw it, yeah, for about £1, I thought I'd give it a go. Next up, we have selected poems by Robert Graves. I've read some of Graves' poetry before. I used to have a really big sort of complete poems of Robert Graves, and I got rid of it because I didn't like his poetry enough to want to read absolutely everything. And so instead I found this, and it's a bit thinner, and it's got the few poems in here that I really like by him, and that'll be enough for me. So a little old penguin of his selected poems, and there's no blurb or anything. But yeah, shall I? I'll read my favourite poem. If I can find it. I think it's one of his relatively famous ones. I just have to find it. I hadn't planned to read it. So let's see. Let's see if it's easy to find nice and quickly. I'm sure it'll take much longer for me to try and find the poem than it would to read it, because it's very short. So it's called She Tells Her Love While Half Asleep. She tells her love while half asleep, in the dark hours, with half words whispered low, as earth stirs in her winter sleep and puts out grass and flowers, despite the snow, despite the falling snow. And that's it. Just a short, beautiful little poem. Next up, we have The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I had no idea it was as short as it is. Actually, it was surprising to see that. Here's what it says on the back. Bidding farewell to the land that has been his home for many years, Khalil Gibran's prophet is asked to speak to the people he is to leave behind, answering their questions on subjects such as love and marriage, work and play, possessions and crime, death and beauty, eating and drinking. He provides a beautiful insight into living a life shaped by tolerance, warmth, and love. So, yeah, we'll see what it's like. It's one I've sort of heard about and never really knew exactly what it was. So I've always been a little bit curious about it, but it seemed a little mysterious at the same time. I think most recently in a book, it turned up in a book I was reading by William Dalrymple, the Holy Road. Was it the Holy Road? No, From In the Shadow of the Holy Mountain. That's the one. I'm conflating two of his titles. Next up, some more poetry. We've got Poet in New York by, I always get his various names muddled up, Federico Garcia Lorca. I've got his selected poems behind me on the poetry shelf, and so I read sort of excerpts from Poet in New York, but never the whole thing. So here it is. On the back it says, Lorca lived in start that again. Lorca lived in New York as a student between 1929 and 1930. Born and brought up in Andalusia, his reaction to the sprawling city, with its crowds, skyscrapers, brutality, and loneliness, was violent. He produced his most daring and explosive poetry, expressing feelings of dislocation and alienation in brilliant verse and turning New York into a city of his imagination. This classic translation of a modern masterwork also includes photographs and Lorca's lively letters home. So just sort of going into the the full experience, I suppose, of what it was like for him in that period. And then another Penguin modern classic of the same period, and I promised more EM Forster, because all I've ever read is The Machine Stops, and I've read it a couple of times, so I felt like I needed to read something else by him. And I found A Passage to India, and so I thought I'd give this a go. It seems like a good book to take on holiday with you. We'll see if that's the case. On the back it says, a mysterious incident at the Marabar Caves involving a dealer Quested, newly arrived from England, and the presumed guilt of a charming and mercurial Dr. Aziz, are at the centre of Forster's magnificent novel of India during the Raj. topical now as in 1924 in its evocation of the dangers and ambiguities of colonialism. As Forster himself said, it is about something wider than politics, about the search of the human race for a lasting home, about the universe as embodied in the Indian earth and the Indian sky, about the horror lurking in the Marabar caves. So yeah, it sounds very intriguing. I seem to remember watching an adaptation of this when I was very young, but can hardly remember anything about it. Next, we're on to some non-fiction history. Yeah, I picked up a few history books that I was really quite curious about and quite excited to find. First up, we've got Eric Hobsbawm, The Age of Revolution, 1789 to 1848. And from what I understand, this is essentially looking at the Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution at the same time. So here's what it says on the back. Eric Hobsbawm traces with brilliant clarity the transformation brought about in every sphere of European life by the dual revolution, the 1789 French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution that originated in Britain. This enthralling and original account highlights the significant 60 years when industrial capitalism established itself in Western Europe, and when Europe secured the domination over the rest of the world as it was to hold for a century. So just just the average walk in the park, really, nothing really all too serious or world changing. I'm sure no one got hurt. So a very simple, it's a non-event. It'll be fine. Next up, I suppose some politics, really. This is How They Broke Britain by James O'Brien. Due to Joe Spivey mentioning James O'Brien's radio show and sort of podcasts and things, I've sort of found a an area that seems relatively level in its sort of discussion of politics, but on certain points is rather rather damning. And James O'Brien can be rather damning on particularly on the way the Conservatives have performed over the last 14 years or so on Brexit, on all kinds of other things, and I'd say about 99% of the time I'd probably agree with him on a lot of that. So let's see what this book is about. So something has gone wrong, really wrong, in Britain. Our economy is tanked, our freedoms are shrinking, and social divisions are growing. Our politicians seem most interested in their own careers, and much of the media only makes things worse. We are living in a country almost unrecognisable from a decade ago. And let's have a look what was this written before I carry on. This came out in 2023, so 2 years ago. Here, radio and Twitter phenomenon James O'Brien explains whose fault it is, who broke Britain, and how did they do it. And I think I saw this book sort of around when it first came out, and I think the title felt quite alarmist to me, and I did feel a little I don't know, is it pushing things too far? But the more I've thought about it, the more I think that actually it's at least worth considering. And so yeah, and for a certain period of time as well, I was just sort of turned off and didn't want to think about what was going on, particularly, you know, since about 2021, I suppose. Um, just sort of stopped paying attention to politics for a bit, um, probably much to my own detriment. So anyway, this is me attempting to fill in some gaps, and I'm intrigued to see what I think of it. Back to some fiction. This is a book that someone had found in like a little free library or something, and asked if I wanted it. And then it never worked out, but it sounded really interesting. And then I heard about it recently. Someone was talking about it recently, and it reminded me of it. So I ordered a copy, and it's Luther Blizet's Q. And I think Luther Blizet is a pseudonym for 4 writers. I think they're based in Italy. And this is about a peasants' revolt, essentially, just after the Reformation. So here's what it says on the back. 1517, Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses, demanding reform of the Catholic Church, to the door of the cathedral church in Wittenberg, setting off the period of upheaval, war, civil war, and violence we now know as the Reformation. In this age devastated by the wars of religion, a young theology student adopts the cause of the heretics, of the disinherited. Across the chessboard of Europe, from the German plains to the flourishing Dutch cities and down to Venice, the gateway to the east, our hero, a quote-unquote survivor, a radical Protestant Anabaptist who goes under many names, and his enemy, Q, a papal informer and heretic hunter, play a game in which no moves are forbidden, and the true size of the stakes remain hidden to the end. What begins as a struggle to reveal each other's identities eventually becomes part of a much greater mission to destroy and achieve domination over each other. That just sounds really, really good. Sort of reminds me, it's almost like Smiley and Carla, or that kind of, I suppose Holmes and Moriarty. Although this sounds a bit more satisfying than Holmes and Moriarty. And it said, one of the blurbs, so in the Independent, it said, "Imagine Umberto Eco's knack for the swashbuckling thriller of ideas, crossed with an artful touch of le carre's, and you have a fair idea of the novel's mood. As a historical blockbuster, it boasts pace, colour, excitement, and suspense to spare. Q works like a charm. Splendid." Just sounds great. A sort of mysterious historical fiction book set during the Reformation. It sounds really good to me, at least. Next up, this is one I saw in the little free library at work. And again, there's no blurb here, so I don't know much about it. I just recognise the author and just sort of grabbed it in a kind of just without thinking, really. And it's Milan? Is it Milan? Yeah, Milan Kundera Immortality. I believe he died. Was it last year that Kundera died? I'd never read anything by him, and so I thought I'd pick this up, even if it's not. I don't think it's the work he's most well known for. Is that the unbearable lightness of being, and the Book of Laughter and Forgetting. And he wrote the art of the novel. Cool. But yeah, sort of an author I'd sort of planted in the back of my head but hadn't got round to. So I was excited to find that when I did. Then next up, some more poetry for my slowly growing Fernando Pessoa collection. This is a little larger than the whole universe. Um, so it's the selected poems edited and translated by Richard Zenith, who I think in English is the sort of go-to Pessoa scholar and translator. He wrote the doorstopper biography of Pessoa. I think over here it was Pessoa, An Experimental Life. Is that right? Something like that. I think it might have just been Pessoa, the biography, or something quite boring over in America. But essentially, I've got another selection of Pessoa's poems by Zenith that was an earlier selection called Pessoa and Co. And this, sort of looking just generally without looking at necessarily the individual poems, but looking at the heteronyms included. And for any of the uninitiated, Fernando Pessoa was a Portuguese writer who essentially wrote under these heteronyms, which are, it's similar to a pseudonym, only they're sort of a completely different personality. It's not just pretending to have a different name so you're not recognised. He was creating these whole personalities. Many of them he had backstories to. He drew up horoscopes for them. He took some of them very seriously, wrote letters for them, and so on. And so they kind of took on a life of their own. And I've sort of heard that there are many sort of celebrated national sort of Portuguese poets who turned out to be Fernando Pessoa, just yet another heteronym. But yeah, sort of looking at the three main heteronyms here, you'd be forgiven to think that it seems similar to the other one. I think this is a larger selection than the other one, but essentially I think primarily for rights reasons, he's left out the majority of the poems that he included in the last volume. And so the two should kind of slot together to get a bigger picture of what's out there, of what's available. I think there's 4 exceptions, something like that, where he was able to get the rights from his old publisher to publish his translations in this edition. And so yeah, I'm hoping to get a broader idea of Pessoa's poetry and his 3 main heteronyms, who are Alberto Cairo, who's a sort of pastoral poet, Ricardo Reis, who is sort of more of a classical poet, inspired by people like Horace, and then Alvaro de Campos, who is sort of the Walt Whitman of them, and it's sort of expansive and spilling all over the place and full of life. And then there are poems under Fernando Pessoa's own name, but ones that he wrote without a heteronym. And then there's some English poems as well, because he grew up in South Africa and was schooled in English, and so he could write English. But apparently his English was very, very bookish, and didn't come to him naturally. And so there's there's something to the poems that doesn't feel maybe as free or as natural as the others might, apparently. But I'm really, really intrigued, and so we'll see how it goes. So that's a little larger than the whole universe by Fernando Pessoa. Then next up, this is one for a proposed, it's not that I've proposed it to anyone else, but it's something I'm thinking of doing myself, maybe later this year, which is a small Faustian reading project where I read various texts connected to the Faust myth. So far on my shelves, I've got Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe and Thomas Mann's Dr. Faustus. And there's a big black hole there, and I've filled it, and it's the I got a Norton Critical edition of Goethe's Faust. So we've got parts 1 and 2, and we have, with it being a Norton Critical, more than half the book being interpretive notes and context. There's reviews and reactions to Faust from the period, and it includes reactions from German writers and then from writers further afield. I think from some of the Romantics, and then there are modern essays on the plays on Faust parts 1 and 2. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this. I think I'll start with Marlowe, then go to Faust, and then I'll go on to Thomas Mann, I think. So that's my plan. And it's also very satisfying if I go and get my Dr. Faustus by Marlowe. Okay, so yeah, here's Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, and then here's Faust by Goethe. You can see actually that Faust is much bigger, but I just love the way they do look relatively similar, and even if they're a different size, they there's I just like the way there's a sort of an echo there in how they look. So anyway, that'll be something for the future. And then 2 more to go, but 2 rather big books. This one, maybe in length, isn't actually that long, although it's got quite a few. Yeah, it's less than 400 pages. This is Vincent Cronin, The Florentine Renaissance, which just looks like a lovely book. And I haven't read an awful lot about the Renaissance, and certainly not all that much about Florence itself. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And it's got tons of illustrations in it. What do we have here? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, one for I don't know, the Historiathon at some point. Sorry, I've stopped reading the back, so I'll read the synopsis of this. So Florence in the 15th century was the undisputed centre of the Italian Renaissance. Its legacy is apparent today in every aspect of human endeavour. Our art and science, our learning and literature, our Christianity and civic liberties, even our conception of what constitutes a gentleman, have all been shaped by Florentine thought and deed. In this brilliant and absorbing book, Vincent Cronin brings vividly to life the people and myriad achievements of this astonishingly fruitful epoch in human history. So yeah, it sounds good. It looks good. It was first published in 1967, yeah, we'll see how it goes. There is something to I think, yeah, there's something to sort of mid-century non-fiction, sort of mid-20th century non-fiction that I quite like, and I've never been able to put my finger on why. Just something to do with the tone of the writing that I think I like, if anything else. And then finally, the last one here, the biggest brick of them all, it's Peter Ackroyd, London, the Biography, and it's a big one. It's only actually about 800 pages, but it's big. And do we actually have a We just got loads of blurbs from people. there's blurbs from Will Self. Any other names that stand out? A.N. Wilson, Richard Holmes, Andrew Marr, Jan Morris. Is there anyone else that stands out? Anyway, it's the history of London from the Norman conquests. No, from well before that. That's doing a massive disservice. I believe from prehistoric times. So yeah, there's the city as a body, which I suppose is his sort of thesis for the thing and the thinking behind calling it a biography. And then there's the first section from prehistory to 1066, and then we've got the Middle Ages, and then all the way through. I think, as you can imagine, it looks like it sort of grows the closer in history it gets. But yeah, there's nothing really to read, but it looks really good, and again full of these illustrations. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. So we'll see how it goes. And that is my book haul. This is my stocking up of the pantry for the next good while. So there's plenty on the shelves already, and it has got me worrying a little about space, because it's the biggest book haul in a while, and hand on heart, I'm really not planning on buying too many books again in the future, so I'll probably have to reorganize things a bit and store these somehow, and then we'll see how it goes. So in review, Peter Ackroyd, London, the biography, The Florentine Renaissance by Vincent Cronin. We've got Faust Parts 1 and 2 by Goethe, and it's translated by Walter Arndt. I was umming and ahhing over various translations for ages, and then when I saw that there was an Norton Critical, I just went for that. So we'll see how it goes. A Little Larger Than the Whole Universe by Fernando Pessoa. Immortality by Milan Kundera. Q by Luther Blizet. How They Broke Britain by James O'Brien. The Age of Revolution by Eric Hosborne. Is this A Passage to India? Yeah, A Passage to India by EM Forster. It's getting rather heavy now. Poet in New York by Federico Garcia Lorca. We've got The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. We've got Robert Graves' Selected Poems, selected by himself. We've got Zorba the Greek by Nikos Kazantzakis. And then finally, we have The Machine Stops and The Celestial Omnibus by EM Forster. Again, so there we go, a massive book haul that I don't know what to do with, so we'll see how that goes. But for now, thanks for watching. If you've read any of these and have any opinions, strong or otherwise, then let me know. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.